don't often go through the books that I've written because some of the books were written so many years ago. Here's a copy of my first book, Bonsai, The Art of Growing and Keeping Miniature Trees. This I wrote in 1984 and it was published in the middle of 1985. So thumbing through this book and also the other book, this is my second book, Bonsai Masterclass, which I wrote in 1986 and published in 1987. This is the first book I wrote when I came to Herons. The other book I wrote when I was still living in my small house in Purley, south of Croydon. Anyway, so here it is. Why am I showing you this book? Because I came across a lovely photograph of a very unusual forest. Now this book shows on page 59, if you look at the book, I'm sure you have a copy of it. This book shows an Ezo-Spruce forest. There's a history behind this Ezo-Spruce forest. It says here a group of Ezo-Spruce forests, 75 centimeter tall. And at that time, I was told that it was already 25 years old. So that is 40 years ago. So if I still have this tree, it's about 65 years old. I'll tell you what happened to that tree. This tree I had for quite a few years. I purchased it in 1974 from the chairman of the British Bonsai Association, and I've had it from 74 to maybe, I would say, the mid-90s. I owned it for about 20 years and it was shown regularly at the Chelsea Flower Show and various other bonsai shows. This is another picture of the same group. The same group here, you see, it's a group of only 5 trees, and I had changed the pot, or I was about to change the pot. You see, some of them are quite thick, and I thinned the tree quite a lot, so I changed the style of this tree. Unfortunately, this picture is only in black and white, but that's the original picture before I trimmed it. So again, if you read, so different people have different opinions because it was imported from Japan in 1962. So when I bought it, it was already in the country for about 12 years. And of course, the ages of trees are very hard to be precise. You don't know who to believe. Unless you cut it up and count the rings, you can never tell the age of the tree. But I was told that this tree at that time must have been about 40 years old. Different people have different opinions. But what happened to this tree was that when I came to Herons, I owned it for quite a few years. And in the mid-90s, I can't remember precisely which year, it was shortly after that big robbery I had in 1993. So it must have been 95 or thereabouts. And this tree went missing. And I believe that this group was stolen by a connoisseur because they knew what they were looking for. They just stole this one. And it was passed over the fence during the daytime, over the fence and into the car park. And I've never seen it again. So if ever you see this group, you know where it comes from. The Ezo-Spruce, like most of the imported trees, was brought in 62 when the restrictions were not so tight. Later in the 60s and early 70s, the United Kingdom Ministry banned Ezo-Spruce completely. Those of you who know how to import trees from Japan will know that in the UK, you are only allowed to bring in maples, quite a few of the deciduous trees, provided they meet all the quarantine and other plant health conditions. Certain species, like the pines, the white pine and the Chinese juniper, they are allowed into the country, but they're called derogated species. By derogated, I mean that they are given special permission, dispensation to be brought in, but they have to be quarantined from between 3 and 6 months. But the Ezo-Spruce is completely banned. So during all the years between 1962 until when this was stolen about 30 years later in the mid-90s. The Ezo-Spruce was exceptionally rare. This was probably the only Ezo-Spruce in the whole of the UK, if not in Europe. That is why it was so highly sought after. So looking at this group made me very nostalgic, and I have some spruce which are not quite Ezo-Spruce. I will go and show you what they're like, and I'm now going to make a forest of these trees for old time's sake. So here we go. So I have certain plants, some spruces, which are near enough to what the Ezo-Spruce looks like. I'm not sure what these were sold as. They are certainly a type of Picea. For those of you who are botanically minded, will have come across Ezo-Spruce described as Picea ezoensis. That means either Y-E-Z-O-E-N-S-I-S, ezoensis, or ezozensis. I've also come across Ezo-Spruce botanically described as Picea glenii. I think both of them are correct, but because I'm not a plant specialist, I don't know which is the more correct one. But to my mind, these are the nearest thing I could find to Ezo-Spruce. They could be Ezo-Spruce, but the color seems a bit pale, maybe because they've not been fertilized enough. So these tall, straight trees are absolutely ideal for that sort of thing. I've just brought together a clutch of trees. So what have I got here? I've got 7 trees. And the ones that I show you, the group that I showed you from my books, had 5 trees. But I think 7 trees should fit a reasonable sized pot. So let me show you what I do with each of these trees. Now, fortunately, most of the branches are fairly horizontal. But where I have branches that spring upwards, I will either cut them out or wire them downwards. By the way, Ezo-Spruce are very, very easy to propagate from cuttings. I remember when I came to the nursery in January 85, the first thing I ever did with my Ezo-Spruce group was to make cuttings. And I have the same cuttings now 39 years later in the field. Some of them are 6-8 foot tall with trunks about 4 or 5 inches thick. I will show you them. I will do another program showing you how to make Ezo-Spruce cuttings. But believe you me, all the spruces propagate from cuttings very easily. But I don't want to get distracted. I will show you about cuttings in another video. So let us show you what I do with each of these trees. So we want a conical shape, and we will make the conical shape by simply thinning out the branches into a conical shape. Remember, whenever you take the tips out, it encourages branching and you will get more side shoots growing. Many people do not understand conifers because when they see them, they get a bit disappointed that they don't seem to bud back, but they do bud back very easily. The lower branches in a group we usually take off because we want to show the stems. So even without wiring, that looks very, very presentable. Very presentable. I know that I could easily do a bit of wiring and wire the branches down. If you wanted to be pedantic when you make a video, by pedantic, in case those of you who do not know what the word means, pedantic means scholarly or meticulous, and pedantic I will be just for this one, but it would take too long. As you know, most of my videos are really to show you principles. I try not to refine it in the time allotted. So you can wire them downwards. You see, if you wire all the branches, I may in fact do one. I won't show you in this video because I don't want to take up valuable video time. But if you take the trouble to wire all the branches down, they do look better. So why do we wire them down? Because in nature, these trees, as they grow older, the weight of the branches makes the branches hang down. So it makes it more credible as an older tree. And all these little side shoots, if they're going in the wrong direction, I will prune them off. I will just show you one of them, or part of one. I noticed that even the spruce here has mycelium. I always thought that it's usually the pines that have mycelium. I have not known junipers to have mycelium. Beech trees, of course, have mycelium. I guess people who grow forest trees would propagate these from seed because they do have cones. And when the cones develop, they use the seed for propagation. But I find that cuttings are usually much easier. I said I wasn't going to show all, but I will show you most of it. There's always a temptation to spend a lot of time just doing so much detail that it may bore the pants off you. I selectively prune. So this, I think this shoot is probably only maybe a year or even 2 years old. This is certainly last few months' growth. So they do grow quite rapidly. But because these have not been taken out of the pot for so long, they've kept them relatively stunted, for want of a better word. I don't like the use of the word stunted. Many years ago, people used to refer to bonsai as being dwarf trees. Again, dwarf trees, I feel, is a pejorative word. We don't talk of people being dwarf. They're just diminutive, smaller. So let's look at it again. Just putting these trees together, you begin to get a feel for what the forest will look like. So these trees on the right-hand side have not been trimmed. This one I trimmed and partly wired. You see the difference? You see the big difference between this and that. And this is the image you should try and create with all these trees. So where they are long, remember what I told you? Try and create the conical shape just by pruning it, pruning the long shoots, and then if you had the time, wire them down from every side, right round. These lower branches which are dying don't matter because we will not use those lower branches in any case. So that has been trimmed. Even if I didn't wire them, simply putting it together in a group would make it very convincing as a group. So this is all you need to do. Again, those are too long there. Take those off. So you see, making a triangular shape all around, like so. Tall A-frame. So this is the shape of the tree you want, rather than this. This has not been trimmed. So let me show you what I would do with this one. So again, if they're sprouting up, I will wire that one. So again, these are too long. This is what I call a tall A-frame. And of course, with Christmas just around the corner, these are used a lot as Christmas trees. So very seasonal. Although by the time this video gets broadcast, we will have past Christmas. So this is how I'm going to trim them. So I've done 4. I'm going to do another 3 and making it into a 7-tree group. So I'm now going to go into the shop and look for some pots to put these 7 trees in. So we'll walk into our pot shop and I'll show you what we have. So I'm in the pot shop now, and I brought you to the pot shop because sometimes when people come to a nursery like this where there are thousands of pots, you get completely confused. Bonsai is a traditional art, and a lot of the work in bonsai is bound by tradition. And tradition is a good thing, but sometimes it can be a bit stifling. But in this instance, the tradition makes sense. By tradition, forest plantings or groups are usually planted in long, shallow, oval pots, and you can see why. If you planted it in something deep, it wouldn't look right. Let's explain to you why. Now let's look at some of these oval pots. And also, evergreens are planted in these dark colored, not very gaudy pots. So this is a ceramic oval. So this is the sort of pot that would look absolutely right for this sort of tree. So if we put these trees in, you can get some ideas to how they would look in this pot. So this is a ceramic oval of this size. We also have a glazed oval, but I haven't chosen a bright color. This is a dark colored, almost black colored pot. So we always refer to the pot as the picture frame. The composition of the bonsai is the picture, and the pot is the frame in which the painting or the composition goes. So this is how you would use the pot. Now, there are oval pots and oval pots. We're talking of shallow ovals. You have these oval pots which are called incurve. You see the ends are curved like this. You also have pots that have a lip. This is an oval pot that has lip. These are mica pots, by the way. They're extremely good value. Look at that. So this one has got a lip, and they are shallow. We also have deep oval pots, but you can see why we use the shallow pot. If you were to use these pots, it wouldn't look right. It's too deep. So although it's oval, it's not appropriate. If you were training the tree, you can use it for training, but the final composition should be lower. Let's come to other types of pots. Round pots are also possible. Round pots, you can also make a group. It would look quite good. This is a bit deep, but you can see putting it in a round pot with several trees would also look right. So this should not be discounted. But this is a drum pot. If you were to use a round pot like this, for instance, this wouldn't look right. The eye tells you that it's not right. Okay? So, and what about rectangular pots? You can use rectangular pots because when we're training our groups, we put them in big seed trays and we let them grow, and when it's ready, we take it out and we can put it on a piece of slate. But if you wanted to make a composition that you want to show off, then the rectangular pots don't look right. Let's go to some of the other pots and show you what is suitable and what is not suitable. Okay, while we pass the pot shop, these are rectangular pots. You can put them in rectangular pots. This is not too deep. but it wouldn't look quite right. It wouldn't look as nice as if you were putting it in a shallow oval pot. So here we have lots of oval pots. Some of them are glazed. I always say, if you like a glazed pot and you enjoy it, why don't you use it? Don't be bothered about what other people say. Now let's look at these rectangular pots. This is a shallow rectangular, and I think these would be suitable as well, should you want to. So that is possible. What else can we do? Let's go and look at some other pots. We have the good old tokoname pots, and we have some lovely old semi-antique pots here, lovely oval pots here. And here we have a majestic tokoname shallow rectangular pot with a slightly rounded edge. That would be very good. I dare say that would have been used for a group at some point. Now these are tokoname pots, and they're all shallow oval pots. I would guess that maple forest would look quite nice in these blue pots. Look at that. We call this the speckle glaze. The dots are apparently oil spots that are thrown onto the glaze, and it gives that effect. Again, shallow oval pot there. That would be suitable too. Another shallow oval pot there. But once you get into deep rectangles, they are for individual trees. They are not suitable. Now let's look at these ones. These are typical group planting pots. Very shallow oval pots. These are true tokoname pots which I purchased back in 1993. Most of these were purchased then. Again, these shallow oval tokoname pots. This is a semi-antique pot, and I'm not sure about the provenance, but it's got this lovely crackle glaze on it. It looks old, looks antique. So you see what a variety and wealth of pots we have for planting the forest group. Let's come and show you some other pots. We've got some other lovely pots there. Have a look. When we are passing here, these are antique. I think they're over 100 years old. Primitive pots, what we call nanban. Primitive pots that I purchased in auctions in Japan. So these would be very suitable. Although they're round, primitive, they would suit that oval, the group planting. And that's a typical, I don't know what it is. I think someone researched it. Yeah. Apparently that is the Tosui pot, that one. And that's another magnificent pot for group planting. Slightly creamy color with a hint of brown in it. Few specks. What a beautiful pot. These pots are very expensive now. And this is a rectangular with rounded corners, slight incurve. And this pot, believe it or not, if you look at my first book, my split trunk maple was planted in this when I purchased it back in 1974. So this is the pot, very pot that was used for my split trunk maple. It just shows how big that tree has grown. The pot it's in now is twice the size. Now that's also, this is called a Matsui Shita. So this again is a famous Japanese pot. And then these are drum pots, antique drum pots. Matsushita Hiroyuki. I don't know whether it's correct or not, but someone did research them. So I would say these drums, also very elegant, they could be used. Look at these, all suitable for group plantings. So just showing you the pots, I think you will enjoy looking at these pots, and you see how they are possible for group plantings. So now that I've shown you the pots, I'm going to go back and I'm going to plant these up, and I will of course spend some time wiring the trees, and I will show you the end product. So let me show you how far I've got to. I'm using this shallow incurve pot, and I've wired 3 of those trees, And just putting it there, you can see the effect of the forest coming through. Just 3 of them begins to make it look quite convincing. I've left the top there because branches will grow from there because I want the group to be taller. Even if I put some of these on the side here, see, these have not been wired. You see the difference? Just taking the trouble to wire the branches down does make a difference. So I'm going to take the trouble to wire all of them. So I've got 4 more trees to wire, so this is going to take quite a lot of time, but I will show you stage by stage how the group is developing. So let me show you the concluding part of this video. I have now teased the root balls. Can you see? We've just teased it, and I'm going to put them together. So I'm going to get one of my assistants. It's Christmas Eve, so there's not much going on. So I've got to persuade someone to come in, do some filming for me, and then we will show you how we finalize this project. So let me show you what I've done to the spot. I've put the mesh there, and I put 2 pairs of wires. That means this is 1 pair of wires, and that is another pair of wires. So these 4 ends I'm going to use to tie the trees in position. So I'm going to find someone to hold the camera while I do this. So here we are starting to assemble the trees together. I tried to put the largest tree or the tallest trees as the principal trees to be towards the center, and the shorter trees towards the side. I did say I'm not very happy with the tops of that, but I have to be a bit patient and wait for them to develop or grow. So just putting them together at random, you can see it's got a very pleasing effect. Although this is just evenly spaced, it's not so effective if you space it evenly. If you have some trees close together and some wider apart, it has more impact and it looks more natural. So supposing you wanted to put a couple of trees much closer together, you can reduce the root ball more, or even cut some of the roots in the middle. Of course, now we're right in the middle of winter when it's dormant, and I can protect the trees after I've made it. I can reduce the root ball quite a bit. I'm not going to remove all the roots, I'm just going to remove roots that are coming in the way. And if you want to really squash them tight together, you should even bare root the tree, but that is best left till the spring. So in this case, you see I've managed to get the things very close together like that. Can you see? If you put it close together like that, you can also help it along by tying together. You can help it by getting a bit of wire. So you've got to remember to remove the wire. It's like making a clump star almost, like so. You can see the effect. So just play around with it till it feels right. So that's very close, like that. Also, if you stagger the planting, you can get that close effect without having to cut the root. But if you want it really close, then you will have to cut some of the root. And as I always remind people, you can have the composition by having like a group of 3 on one side towards one side, because we've only got 7 trees. And then we can do a small group of 4 trees on this side. So you can have a planting like this. So that also looks nice, you know, a group like this. So you don't have to have them all together. So let's see what they would look like if they're all together. That's another effect. Also, don't be afraid to leave a lot of space at the edge of the pot. If you did this planting with a lot of space on that side, that is also effective. That means having a lot of space to one side like that. You know, I always say when you make a group, you wish you had 4 hands. So this is where the wires come in. You can see how I'm tying the trees together with these wires that I've threaded through the pot, so they will keep them in position. Also, you don't have to always have them growing straight. You can have them slightly splayed out as well, like that, so they don't have to be vertical. That's also a possibility. So all sorts of ideas you can play with. So as I always remind people, my video is about giving you ideas. The refining is not as important in my video. So that's a taller one. I wanted shorter ones on the outside, so I can do that. So as long as they are randomly placed, they will look very natural. So this is leaving a lot of space on this side. And if I do the other version, I can have 3 trees on that side and 4 like this. So I don't know what to choose. Maybe I'll do this 2-group planting and then complete it with moss, and then see how it looks. So you get the general idea. All right. So this is the result of creating a group which is composed of 2 subgroups, 4 on the right and 3 on the left. I'm now going to dismantle this group and arrange it in a slightly different way, just to show you the different effects. So this is what it looks like with some moss and a rock there, planted off-center to one side. As I said, that the apexes of the 2 tallest trees, in fact the 3 tallest trees, one could improve it by having more side branches, but I've got to be patient because over a period of time, certainly by next year, we're going to get more shoots coming from there. So that'll fill the top out. So I've got to be patient. I don't want to rush it because this is going to be a big group. I want them tall. But although it's finished, there are altogether 3 or 4, 7 trees. I'm going to be a bit of a rebel, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do next. So wait and see what I do. So I thought I'd show you what the final composition now looks like. I don't know whether you notice any difference. I've added 1 more tree so that the conical shape of the group could be a little more pronounced. So I've added 1 extra tree to the right hand side. So if you now count the trees, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 trees. And for the purist, they would say it shouldn't be done because you should have odd numbers, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. But how could you not say that this is not right? 8, after all, is the very lucky number for Chinese people. So if you want to be superstitious, this is a very auspicious and lucky group with 8 trees. So here we are. I need to make the conical shape more pronounced as it develops. So I was just showing the principle of planting it off-center to the right. And I could get the trees much closer if I wanted to. Already there are quite a few trees which are planted very close together. So this is the effect. So again, I hope all these little episodes of my YouTube videos gives you more ideas as to how you can create interesting bonsai for your own enjoyment. I know some people will say these are very simplistic. Some may say that they are sticks in pots, but so what? Let our imagination run wild. Let us enjoy the art of bonsai, the hobby of bonsai, and as long as you enjoy it, that is what matters. So it's Christmas Eve, and this is what I've done with some what you would call Christmas trees, 8 Christmas trees. There you go, and wishing you a belated happy Christmas, because by the time you see this video, Christmas will have come and gone. Bye for now.